with his mom. Oftentimes, he has one or two reactions in that kind of environment. He either resents that control and fought with that control and didn't like that control, and so he goes out with an image of, I'm not going to be controlled by anyone, particularly women. And so he always has a difficult time with women because he either has to dominate them or he's scared of them because he sees the shadow of mother in all of them. Or else, like a lot of guys today, he succumbed to this control. And he succumbed to this power that bonded with him too deeply. And so here he is at 25 or 35 or 45 or 55. I see guys like this all the time. And mom, in whatever way, from whatever distance, is still dictating the terms and controlling the emotions and violating the boundaries of his family. She calls up a 40-year-old businessman named Tom and says to Tom, Tommy, you and your family are coming to our house for dinner, right? And his wife hates that, but he can't say no because he has no boundaries with mom. And he doesn't know why. But I want you to know, I'm starting to learn why. The reason why is because he has an overly bonded with mother wound in his life. Then there's a third wound. It's called the all-alone wound. We mentioned that real briefly a few weeks ago. You know, every man is supposed to be climbing a mountain. It's called the mountain of manhood, and he's supposed to be cinched in with some other guys real tight. And he's supposed to have his rope attached. We were made to be attached, guys, to other men so that we could climb that high mountain of authentic manhood. But you know, a lot of us have our ropes cut. And we're all alone. We have no close friends connected to us who have access to our inner life. Oh, they do to our outer life, but I'm talking about our inner life. And so when we're going through turmoil, we do so all by ourselves. We have no close friends connected to us who can cheer for us in the noble things of life. The things that we would like to tell somebody else, like how we stayed pure on that business trip with that female associate, or how we took our wife out to some special romantic evening, or how we've been investing in our sons or daughters in some special way, and we need other guys to cheer for us, and we want to tell them about those significant things, but there's nobody to talk to about that. Who would listen to us? Would they think it was corny? So we don't have any cheers because we're not connected, especially in the noble things of life. We have no close friends who connect us to something very, very important, and that is a larger, more accurate perspective of life, which we desperately need to see. Therefore, we doom ourselves to blind spots. How many times have you been in a circle where some guys will start talking and they'll be talking about old Joe or old Wayne, and there's some obvious, huge blind spots in his life, but nobody will tell him. And so it kind of becomes kind of a side conversation among a group about his life as he continues to make the same error again and again, and he's known for it, but nobody delivers him from that circle of doom. Because he can't see it, but he's not connected in a way that other men feel safe enough to tell him about it. And that's what I mean about the all-alone wound. You know, one of the ingredients in modern life that's missing so desperately, and I just think it was divine coincidence maybe that Bill mentioned it even this morning, is older men attaching themselves in friendships to younger men. Older men who get with younger men who encourage them and mentor them. And yet that seems to be missing in our world today. Most young men have no older man that is around them who's just admiring them and encouraging them in their life. That whole power has been short-circuited. And yet, do you know, older men, what it means for you to walk up to a younger guy kind of out of the blue and put your hand on his shoulder and say, I've been watching you. You know what? You're good. I mean, you're really good. That changes a young man's life. Just those few words from an older veteran. And yet we've disconnected in that regard. The switch has been pulled out and cut. And you know what? Both the younger men and the older men lose. The younger men lose the wisdom of the ages to help them, and the encouragement and the admiration that comes that causes them to walk taller and climb higher. And the older men, as they grow older, miss the energy and the deep sense of purpose mentoring a younger man will bring to their life, because we were wired to do that. So what happens in this all alone wound is that we both lose. I want you to know, you got to be connected. And we need to talk about how you get connected. The next is what I call the lack of a manhood vision wound. It's where you have no vision about who you're going to be. You're out there looking around, but rather than having field glasses to survey the landscape to see the long-range distance of life, all you got is a short-range distance. Only as far as you can see. You have no help to carry you for the long haul. And so what happens is most men are kind of living in the now. That's the vision. Wednesday. What's your vision? Wednesday? Tomorrow, what's your vision? Thursday? Well, how about the weekend? Hadn't thought that far out yet. Hadn't got there. And what the world comes in and does is our world comes in, at least here in the 21st century, and it's offered, like it did in the 20th century, a stunted, short-sighted vision of manhood. We'll expand this term later, but you can just write down a conventional vision of manhood. And we'll expand on that term later. But here's what, in the short summary, a conventional vision of manhood is all about. It tells a young man in high school and as he moves out into the workforce or into college, it tells a young man, listen, if you'll put your warrior face on, get it on there, put that mask on, clamp down the armor tight. If you'll put that warrior face on and you go out and you'll work hard, I mean work real hard. And I know it's going to hurt. And it's probably going to hurt your family too. But if you'll work real hard in the end, here's what's going to happen. You're going to get what you want, and then you won't need anybody. You'll get there. You'll be on the mountain. It tells you that in this insulated, isolated, self-sufficient state of prosperity vision, you'll be happy and satisfied. And so generation after generation of young men launch out of those boats with that warrior face on, saying, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the hill. And about 35 or 45 or 55, most of them finally burn out and say, it's not working, I'll never get there. So then they feel disappointed with their lives. And the few who make it, the few who get to the top, and they've made enough where they can have all that they want, and they don't need anyone, then they find out the awful truth. And that is, the conventional vision of manhood is a lie. Now what? And it creates a great wound because we have no vision that will take us over a lifetime into a noble masculinity. And finally, I want to mention one last one. It's what I call the heart wound. Now, you may have gone through the first 4 of the wounds that I mentioned, and as you were listening to me talk, said, man, I'm sorry guys feel that way. I don't have that wound. But this wound, everyone has. Because this is not a wound of nurture. This is a wound that we're born with. This is a wound of nature. Since the beginning of time, man has questioned why he feels pulled to do evil. Now, you don't have to be a philosopher here today to think about this, but just think for a moment. Have there been moments in your life where you've just sat back and said to yourself, why do I find myself at times doing the things that I don't want to do, that I know are wrong? Why do I keep investing myself in things that I know are going to hurt me and my family, and yet I keep doing it? Why do I get out of control? Why can't I do the things that are right? Why do I give in to temptation, to anger? Why is it that the things I know are right and I know would help everyone, I can't find the power to do? Have you ever asked those questions of yourself? Sure you have. Because we've all experienced this particular wound. And the answer to those questions is this. We all have a wound of the soul and spirit that no counselor can fix. It's just part of our birthright, unfortunately. And it's a wound that requires a deeper answer. And we're going to address that deeper answer later on in the year. But here's what I want you to know. You'll walk out of here with this problem. And unless you've learned how to fix it, this problem will continually, every day, undercut your masculinity and your attempts at authentic manhood. That's what the wound represents. So here we are with this suitcase full of stuff. Some of us with a father wound. Some of us with an overly bonded with mother wound. Some of us are just all alone. Some of us can't see. And all of us have a wounded heart. And it's part of the suitcase that we carry out of here with us today. And how a man addresses this unfinished business will determine the kind of man he will become. So, the first issue in authentic manhood is addressing the unfinished business of my past. Now, guys, here's what I want you to know here today, and I want to be real honest with you. Starting next week, it's going to be like we've been in a raft when you've taken one of those rafting trips. You've been in with a group of people and you've been kind of floating down the river having a good time, and then the guide says, get ready, we're about to go into some whitewater. That's where we'll start in the next week, starting to move into that whitewater of masculinity to deal with this kind of unfinished business. And that's what we're going to do for most of this fall together. But that's to address the unfinished business. Then secondly, remember I said there were three things, and I'll only mention the last two briefly. We said the first thing that's critical to authentic manhood is addressing unfinished business. The second is this, establishing a clear and compelling manhood vision. Of course, that addresses the vision in the suitcase. But beginning in January, what we're going to do is carve out a vision that I think is clearly superior to the conventional vision of manhood that I just pointed out to you just a few minutes ago. And I think you're going to be excited about that vision. Because I've seen a lot of guys hear that vision and all of a sudden for the first time they stand tall and they say, that's the kind of man I want to be. And then he sees a group of guys around him saying, let's go for it. Let's get connected and go for it. That's what we'll be talking about specifically in January. And then finally, I want you to know authentic manhood revolves around creating a high-impact, workable plan for my life. And you've got that plan in your hands already. I gave it to you, and you need to now start looking it over. And I'd like you to start reading it, especially part 1, because part 1, if you notice on your plan, is called Looking Back. And so I want you to begin to answer those questions. You have that due in December. But you need to start asking those questions now and thinking about your life in relationship to those questions. But more importantly, that sheet, that first part that says looking back, starts asking you to write down specific goals that you are going to set for yourself to address this suitcase. And how you come up with a plan to address this suitcase is going to determine, in part, the kind of noble, authentic man you will become. I call it the second step of authentic manhood. Unpacking, and I'll see you next week.